You're standing in a grassland. It's night. No flashlight, no weapon, just a sharpened stick. No walls, no door to lock. And somewhere out there, less than 100 meters away, something is watching you. Teeth the length of your fingers. You can't see it. It can see you perfectly. That wasn't a horror movie. That was a Tuesday night for your ancestors for roughly 2 million years. Here's the part nobody tells you. Early humans were not the apex predator. Not close. No claws, no fangs, no thick fur, no night vision. Drop a modern human, alone, naked, onto the African savanna 2 million years ago, and you'd last maybe a day. Something with 4 legs and a better skeleton would decide your dinner. So the real question isn't how ancient humans survived predators. It's how the most vulnerable large animal on the savanna became the one thing every predator learned to avoid. Let's start with what we know for certain, because this isn't speculation. This is written into bone. 1995, Swartkrans, South Africa. Archaeologists examine a skull. An early human ancestor, Paranthropus robustus, 1.8 million years old. 2 puncture marks, perfectly spaced, punched clean through the skull. For years, nobody could explain them. Then, someone matched the spacing to the lower canines of a fossil leopard, found at the same site. The leopard grabbed the skull from below, dragged the body into a tree to eat in peace, away from scavenging. Modern leopards still do this exact move. That skull wasn't alone. Same site, dozens more hominin bone, crushed skull, hyena bite marks, big cat tooth score. Archaeologists once assumed early humans were the hunters here. The bones told a different story. We were, quite often, the prey. Somewhere in your direct ancestry, there were relatives who spent their entire lives as a menu item, not a metaphor, a regular food source for big cats, for hyena, for crocodile. Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania. Crocodile bite marks on hominin leg bone, nearly 2 million years old. Early humans drinking at riverbanks ambushed the same way a wildebeest gets ambushed today. Add giant hyenas the size of lions, saber-toothed cats built for large prey, eagles big enough to lift a small child, slow on the ground, vulnerable near water, exposed from above, stacked against us on every axis. So how do you go from regularly eaten to basically untouchable? Start with scavenging. Early humans weren't always hunting fresh kill. Often they were racing hyenas and vultures to whatever a lion left behind. Big cats eat the meat first. They leave the bone. Early humans cracked those bones open with simple stone tools, reaching the marrow and brain tissue inside. Not glamour, not heroic, but it kept them alive long enough for the real advantages to arrive. It wasn't one invention. It was a slow stack of small advantages, each one making the next one possible. A survival build assembled over 1 million years without anyone realizing. Advantage 1. We stood up. Bipedalism looks unremarkable until you compare it to the alternative. Standing upright means you see over tall grass. It frees your hand. Chimpanzees have terrible sightlines through savanna grass. Early humans could scan the horizon like a lookout tower on leg. One adaptation, it bought us the most valuable resource in any predator encounter. Warning time. Advantage 2. Endurance. Humans are, pound for pound, one of the worst sprinters in the animal kingdom. A lion closes the gap in 3 seconds. But over long distances in heat, almost nothing on land beats a human. Millions of sweat glands, covering nearly the entire body, let us cool down while running. Most predators can only shed heat by panting. Chase too long and they overheat. Early humans use this. It's called persistence hunting. Track an animal, keep pace with it for hours under the midday sun, wait for it to physically break down. A handful of hunter-gatherer groups still do this today, but endurance doesn't stop something from eating you while you sleep. For that, we needed fire. Wonderwork Cave, South Africa. Burned bone. Ash deposit. Dated to around 1 million years ago. Once humans controlled fire, everything changed overnight. Nocturnal hunters rely on darkness and surprise. Fire strips both away. It lights up the camp. It produces smoke that irritates eyes and noses. Most animals learn, across generations, to avoid it. For the first time, you could sit inside a ring of light and actually sleep. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer camps find predator attacks near active fires are exceptionally rare. Before fire, night was the enemy's playground. After fire, it was ours too. Fire solved the night problem. It did nothing for the day. For that, we needed number. And I mean that more literally than you'd think. Early humans lived in small, tight groups, not just for company, a defense system. A lone human is an easy target. A group of 20 watching in every direction, shouting warnings, throwing rocks in unison is genuinely intimidating even to a predator. Here's the detail. Most explanations skip. Predators aren't suicidal. An injured predator can't hunt. A predator that can't hunt starves. So every attack is a cost-benefit calculation, and a coordinated group of humans simply isn't worth the risk when easier prey is grazing nearby. We didn't need to be dominant. We just needed to look like too much trouble. There's a quieter piece of this. Language, not sentences. Early alarm call. One sound for danger from above, a different one for danger in the grass, another for freeze right now. Vervet monkeys already do a simple version of distinct calls for eagles, snakes, and leopard, each triggering a different response. Once you can communicate the type and direction of a threat instantly, 20 vulnerable individuals become one coordinated defense system. That's the difference between a group that scatters in panic and a group that runs a plan. Sleep was its own battlefield. You lock a door and go unconscious for 8 hours without a second thought. Early humans had no such luxury. Some of the oldest evidence of deliberate shelter suggests early hominins built platforms up in trees, the same reason that chimpanzees still sleep off the ground every night. Even after fire, groups likely rotated a night watch, someone half awake feeding the flames, listening. For most of our species' existence, uninterrupted sleep wasn't the default. It was earned. Then came weapon. The moment humans stopped waiting to be not worth it and started becoming an active threat. Schoningen, Germany. The earliest deliberately sharpened wooden spears we've found around 300,000 years old. Balanced, shaped for throwing, not just stabbing. Then stone-tipped spear. Then, around 70,000 years ago, the bow and arrow. Think about what that actually changes. For the entire history of predator-prey conflict, the fight required getting close. Claws, teeth, even early spears meant real danger up close. A bow broke that rule completely. For the first time, a human could kill from a distance most predators couldn't cross fast enough to punish them for trying. Even before the bow, humans had a strange biological superpower, an obscenely good throwing arm. Our shoulder joint, unlike a chimpanzee's, stores and releases elastic energy like a slingshot, letting an average human hurl a rock or spear fast enough to injure, or seriously deter, almost any predator from a safe distance. Combine that with group coordination, and a pride of lions circling a camp isn't looking at easy prey anymore. It's looking at a dozen accurate projectiles coming from a dozen directions at once. No other primate on the planet can do that. Across thousands of years, natural selection quietly favored the big cats and hyenas that learned to keep their distance from armed, upright, torch-carrying primates, because the ones that didn't survive to pass on their genes. Here's the part that's a little unsettling once you notice it. Some scientists argue humans didn't just learn to defend against predators. We learned to think like one. Fossil evidence from multiple African sites shows large predator populations declining in the same regions. Around the same time, human tool use and hunting sophistication increased. Early humans weren't just avoiding lions anymore. They were scavenging kills out from under them, using fire and numbers to drive big cats off their own catches. Eventually, hunting the exact same prey the predators depended on. Spend your entire evolutionary history being terrified. Then, generation by generation, become the thing that terrifies it back. Not a metaphor. A documented shift in the ecological balance of an entire continent, caused by one unusually clever, cooperative, endurance-running ape with a stick. You can still see a faded echo of this today. The Hadza of Tanzania, the San of the Kalahari, two of the last groups on Earth still living something close to a hunter-gatherer. They share territory with lions, leopards, and hyenas to this day. And observers report the same pattern. These predators, fully capable of overpowering a human, almost never try. Not because they're friendly, because generations of encounters taught them humans are too costly a target. Inherited caution, passed down the same way your instinctive fear of the dark was passed down to you, except running in the opposite direction. It's worth pausing on how unlikely this outcome was. Go down almost any other branch of the primate family tree, and you won't find another animal that made this leap. Gorillas rely on raw size. Baboons rely on aggression. Chimpanzees rely on number. Inside dense forest with escape routes everywhere. Humans had none of that on the open savanna. What we had instead was rarer. The ability to plan around a threat we hadn't even encountered yet. A chimpanzee reacts to a snake in front of it. A human sits by a fire the night before a hunt and describes in detail exactly where a lion was spotted 3 days ago. So everyone already knows to avoid that ridgeline before they've even left camp. That's not just memory. That's the transfer of survival knowledge across time, between minds. There's even a kind of victory lap buried in the art. Chauvet Cave, France. Paintings roughly 30,000 years old. Lions, rendered with astonishing detail. Not hidden in fear. Painted deliberately, deep inside a cave, by fire. Some researchers think this wasn't just decoration. It was processing. A species finally safe enough, confident enough, to turn its greatest fear into art on a wall. wall. You don't paint the thing that's actively eating your species. You paint the thing you've learned to live alongside. And here's the part that should genuinely mess with your head a little. Every instinct you still carry today, your fear of the dark, that prickle on the back of your neck when you feel like you're being watched, your discomfort standing alone somewhere unfamiliar at night, none of that is irrational. That's not some outdated glitch. That's inherited memory, encoded across hundreds of thousands of years of your ancestors being genuinely, physically hunted. You feel uneasy in the dark because for most of human history, the dark was where you died. The predators have mostly disappeared. The fear stuck around. A warning system with nothing left to warn you of. It's a little like flinching at a car backfire. Decades after the war that trained that reflex into you ended. The threat is gone. The update never arrived. Some researchers point to it as one reason horror movies work on us at all. Why a shadow moving wrong in your peripheral vision spikes your heart rate before your conscious brain even processes what you saw. That reaction is instant, automatic, older than language itself. You're not scared because you're irrational. You're scared because somewhere in your DNA, a system built by relatives who were genuinely, repeatedly hunted is still doing exactly the job it was built to do, just with no actual leopards left to justify the alert, which is the strangest part of this entire story. We spent nearly 2 million years being prey. We built an entire survival toolkit: endurance, cooperation, fire, weapons, just to stop being eaten. And it worked so completely that within the blink of an evolutionary eye, we went from cowering in trees to building cities with zero natural predators anywhere inside. You will very likely go your entire life without a single genuine predator threat. Meanwhile, your brain is still quietly running defense software written for a world that mostly doesn't exist anymore. Next time you get a weird chill walking to your car in a dark parking lot, that's not paranoia. That's a 2 million-year-old alarm system, still faithfully doing its job. Long after the war it was built for actually ending. So back to that image we opened with. You, standing alone in the grass, no weapon but a stick, something with teeth watching you from the dark. Your ancestors lived that exact moment over and over for thousands of generations. And instead of losing, they slowly, painstakingly rewrote the rules of the entire game. They didn't outrun the danger, they outthought it, they outlasted it, they eventually outnumbered it into submission. You're not just descended from survivors, you're descended from the animals that made every other predator on the planet think twice. That fear you still carry in the dark isn't weakness. It's proof. Proof that somewhere back in your bloodline, someone stood their ground long enough for you to exist at all.